catching a reflection in the mirror of something standing in the corner of my room, watching me, observing me. Is it my imagination or insanity? A strange hum, a flash of light. I'm overcome, nothing but fright. Otherworldly beings taking me in the night. I'm an extraterrestrial hostage tonight. I wanna run, but I can't move. What do I do? What do I do? Where are they taking me? Where are they taking me? I'm an extraterrestrial hostage tonight. I wanna run, but I can't move. I don't feel real. I wake up in my bed. Was it just in my head? Looking at my hand, there's something there. Inside of me, I'm feeling oh so scared. Confusion and nasty fear. It wasn't just a nightmare. So loud, so bright, hypnotizing me figures lost in time. I'm tortured, surrounding me tonight. I'm an extraterrestrial hostage tonight. I wanna run, but I can't move. What do I do? What do I do? Where are they taking me? Where are they taking me? I'm an extraterrestrial hostage tonight. I wanna run, but I can't move. I don't feel real. I wake up in my bed. Was it just in my head? Where are they taking me? I'm swelling in me. Where are they taking me? Anxiety rising. Is it just in my head? Paralyzing panic. Is it just in my head? I'm an extraterrestrial hostage tonight. I wanna run, but I can't move. What do I do? What do I do? Where are they taking me? Where are they taking me? I'm an extraterrestrial hostage tonight. I wanna run, but I can't move. I don't feel real. I wake up in my bed. Was it just in my head?
Okay, folks. So that was the second one. There's 3 that we have done so far. She's actually written like an album, like worth of songs, and we're gonna see how it comes out. She's got a lot of different stuff that she's been doing. And what it is she has a notebook like full of poems and things like that. This is my Macho Man Randy Savage shirt tonight. Oh yeah, but so I started looking through it, and I said, this is really good. And she was so self-conscious because she doesn't think that anybody would like her work. And I said, this is really good stuff. You've written these songs, and some of those she wrote a long time ago. So I encouraged her. We all did, and Anthony, all of us, and we pushed her, to keep to like do it. Let's do it. Let's get these done, And so now she's got a lot more confidence, and she knows that she's does good work. I mean, it's the bottom line. And it's not AI generated. This is all hers. She came up with these lyrics, did this. This is her work. So I can't take credit for it. But it's not some AI, not some flippant thing that just does real quick, whatever. And so that, once again, the singer was Violet Helms. Very good voice. Now, we have another surprise for you. Tomorrow, we're going to release the Werewolf song, which will be, and that's a guy that sings that. Sounds kind of Post Maloney. It's good. Post Maloney sounds funny, but it sounds. I like it. You like Anthony? What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's a good song.
And she's got 3 others done, and she's working on. There's a couple that she had way back before that she had written, but she's kind of tweaking them so that they can become songs. And hopefully, we'll have enough to make an album, and then we're just going to release it as an album, or you can download the songs individually. But we haven't decided what we're going to do or how we're going to do it. But yeah, we're going to be playing those on the intro. And I had the idea. Now, this was my idea of actually making it into like multiple different creatures, because she's talking about all these different, like that one, the one from yesterday is called the haunted, no, the haunting. And this one's called Night Visitors. And then tomorrow's song is called Like and Shift. So hope you like them. We'll see what happens. I helped name them. I did that. Let's bring on our guests. Jason McLean, and we got Chris James and James Bartley. Gentlemen, how are y'all guys doing tonight?
Excellent, thanks.
So far, although now I want a Slim Jim.
Hey, it's past my bedtime.
Is it past your bedtime? But you got a beautiful shirt on. You're covered. It's covered. There you go. There you are. James, all the way from Australia, dude. How are you doing, James? Good?
Pretty good. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah. Well, the reason I invited you guys, and there are many people that are going to be involved in this project. This project's going to go on Saturday after Saturday, all the way through March, and you guys are welcome to come on anytime through that period. We're going to have different people. We're going to move it around, shift it around. Jason, you said you'll be back in March with Dr. Bertram, right?
Yeah, I'm going to find a weekend that he's free. His the conference he's doing is should be over like second week in March. So I'm going to find a date.
Yeah. And Chris, of course, you're a Texas boy like me. You're from way down right there by the border, right?
Yeah, I'm about a mile from Mexico.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And James, you're all the way from Australia. Now, and I do keep communication with all three of you pretty regularly. And so it was an obvious choice, you guys to start it off. Another person that's going to be involved in this in the coming weeks is Truth from An Impromptu Truth. He hails from upstate New York. It's Truth and Bass. They're twins. They were abductees. They're coming on next weekend. And then the weekend after, we're going to have Chris Garitano. Of course, he did the MK Ultra thing, and he did Montauk Chronicles, Dark Files, Strange World. And he's got another one called The Haunting We Will Go. And then, of course, South Texas Blues. And then we're going to have Chris Kramer, Robert Kreider, Brian Bowden. There's going to be a lot of people going to be involved in this project. Unfortunately, Nick Redfern it was me and Nick that were kicking around doing this. And then Nick's father took ill and he had to go back to England. So this was our project that we were going to work on. And then we were supposed to co-author a book, which I guess I'm going to have to finish it. I'm going to have to do it, which is fine. That's fine. But what I want to start off with, I want to give everybody a little bit about each one of you. Let's start with you, Jason, and then we'll just go around the horn and you kind of give us a little bit about yourself so we'll know what we're dealing with.
So this is just a continuance of my failure at retiring from podcasting. Used to do a couple shows. Most of y'all know me from Texas Front Porch and comic artist, biblical paranormal researcher, just out for a good time. And I think I need to start dyeing my beard. I'm starting to look a little too much like my dad. It's getting.
I think we all do that eventually at some point.
Yeah.
And so, Chris, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I am a retired Border Patrol agent. That's why I'm so close to the border. And I had absolutely no intention of ever writing any books or doing a podcast, but I kind of got pushed into it by other people. And once you get started in podcasting, like Jason said, it's hard to get out. It's addictive. And so I do a show each week called Strange Things with Chris James, and some people like it. Well, I don't appeal to the masses, but the folks that follow me like it.
Yeah, I think all of us in this panel have a very similar worldview. But so, James, tell us about yourself.
Me?
Yeah, you.
Yeah, well, I must say, I'm an old school Texas guy too, because my dad was in the U.S. Navy. As a boy, he was stationed at NAS Corpus Christi and NAS Kingsville. I was a Dallas Cowboy fan before being a Cowboy fan was in style. Doomsday One, Chuck Howley, Leroy Jordan, Dave Edwards, all those guys, Blade and I, Ralph Neely, those were my boys. And then Doomsday 2, Randy White, et cetera, et cetera. So I definitely have a connection with Texas. It's always been, ingrained, embedded in my soul. And when I hear about all this activity that's going on there in Texas, thanks to you, Josh, and the rest of the crew here, that really, like, it sparks my interest, because it seems to me that Texas is the parts of it anyway, one big open vortex area. Anyhow, I got into this because I've had my own alien abduction encounter experiences. I've also had encounters with cryptids, including a close encounter with a, lack of a better term, dogman in Bullhead City, Arizona, circa 2004, 2006 timeframe. So I've been doing this podcast with my show, the Cosmic Switchboard Show, for the last 5 or so years. Before that, I had another podcast at the dawn of the internet podcast age. It was pretentiously titled the Bureau of Alien Human Affairs, Directorate 5 Reptilian Section, and I was the director, of course. So anyhow, that's me. I don't want to take up too much time. Thank you.
Well, here's the thing. You guys, and I handpicked you guys. I'll start with you, Jason. Once again, like, we had a conversation at the Lone Star Paracon. I believe that's what it was called. It was after the conference.
Yeah.
And it was put on by the Kling brothers. They have a show called Ghost Lab, right? I think it's what it is. And so that's the second one that they've done that I've been to. I came at the very end of it. Everybody was packing up, and I'm like, they were leaving early, and I ended up being late. So everybody went to dinner, though, fortunately. And so we hung out with Rod Nichols, who was on Blondes and Booze, and gosh, he was a really good guest.
It was a good show.
Yeah, he was a good guy. Guys, if you haven't heard that, go check it out. It was on Thursday. I was on with Blondes and Booze, and it was Rod's. We were interviewing him. And then I think this coming Thursday, they're going to have, I forgot her name. She was there at the conference too. It'll come to me in a minute, but she's written a couple books. So go check that on Thursdays, Blondes and Booze, 8:00. But oddly enough, earlier today, one of my best friends in this field, Barton Nunley, had a show, and it was titled Aliens. It was about, so I was working in my office and I didn't have a lot of time, but I popped in and I watched it, and I listened to a little bit of it, and it was really intriguing. And it was funny because the song, we just decided, hey, we're going to play that song tonight because we just finished, getting it done yesterday. And so I thought, this is perfect, just in time. And so it's kind of an alien day, Yeah. And so, Jason, you and I were having a conversation, and we were talking with Christopher Jordan, who's another person who's going to be involved in this project later on down the pipe. And Jordan was like, saying that he was going to come on, but then he had a family emergency he had to deal with that in Houston. So I told him, I said, that's fine. I have plenty of people who will be a part of it. And you and I had this conversation, and Rod actually mentioned that conversation on the show, and he was talking about San Antonio and the cryptids and all that. And that conversation was between you, I, and Christopher Jordan. And I really wanted to continue that. And we got into some weird stuff, a lot of stuff, carbon dating, alien abduction. We were talking about all these different subjects, and it just went all over the place. But I would like to focus on right now. This is what I want to focus on in this particular conversation, at least the beginning of it, what your thoughts are on the alien phenomena. When I say UAP, a lot of people think unidentified alien phenomena or aerial phenomena. I think of unidentified alien presence. I know that's not, I believe that that's what we're dealing with. But a lot of people want to argue, and they want to say, no, it's this, it's that. And then we can always get into where they come from and what your thoughts are. Right. But let's just start with that. Let's start with what your thoughts are, in particular, like what they are, where they come from. Let's, what do you think?
So I think this is one of those things where we have to start by saying it may not be that we're looking at just one phenomena, right? I think this is one of those things where everyone wants, again, like everything, we want to put everything in one box, and if we put a name on it, then we understand it. I don't think that's where we are. I think there's a lot of this phenomena that gets lumped in this that is definitely of human origin, experimentation with technology, active manipulation, perhaps even more exotic technologies than we even realize that are possible. So I think the question is, what percentage is sort of what we would call authentic, non-terrestrial, non-human originated material, and what's human? My thing is, we just need what I would like is just to have all the data on the table, first and foremost, right? Because some of this stuff is very clearly human, some of it's clearly not. My issue with the stuff that is clearly non-human is it seems to constantly change the way it represents itself to us, right? Nick Redfern, Jacques Vallée, they would all say the same thing, that this is something that is constantly rearranging how it presents itself and has throughout history. So I'm not convinced we're dealing with things from another planet per se, or things like that. I think more often than not, what we were actually interacting with is, some would call them ultra-terrestrials, whatever. I think we're dealing with something different entirely. I think we're dealing with spiritual forces more often than not, but I do think there's a physicality to it as well. I'm not convinced it's all necessarily exclusively supernatural on the exotic side. I wouldn't be surprised if there were physical things engaged in this as well. But my problem is, we're very clearly, my real issue is that we're being manipulated on a governmental level on how we even think of this entire phenomena. And it's very clear that we're being manipulated to have certain thoughts and start with certain preconceived notions. And that bothers me more than anything, maybe even more than the phenomena itself, is why are we being pushed down certain rabbit trails? Why is it that a government that has spent tens of billions of dollars learning how to control people through manipulation, not psychic warfare, but psychological warfare, that's the word I was looking for. Who knows, maybe there's a psychic involved too. But they are clearly doing something to make us perceive this in a way that, for whatever reason, they feel is advantageous. So I think the problem is we have multiple phenomena, some of it's us, and that there is a larger agenda about how we're supposed to interpret the phenomena, and that bothers me more than anything else. But baseline, I don't think we're dealing with Mork from Mork. I think we're dealing with something that's much older, has been here for a lot longer, is probably largely supernatural.
It's funny that you said Mork, because most people probably don't know what that, especially younger people. They don't know what, Mork calling Orson, come in, Orson. I remember that as a kid, but it shows our age. But so your thoughts on this, James? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'd like to emphasize that the subject of alien visitations, lack of a better term, non-human visitations, variously described as archons, the watchers, the shining ones, what have you, is thoroughly embedded in the ancient text in various languages and the lore, excuse me, of a number of cultures around the world. If you look at the work by Pierre Sabak in particular, I've had him on my show before, and he studied the ancient texts. He studied the Hebrew, he studied the Latin, the Greek, and so many of the words which we take for granted. And this shouldn't conflict with somebody who has a Christian orientation. It shouldn't, because faith should override all of this. Okay, that's my feeling about it. I have my own personal connection with Jesus, and it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with any of the dogmas or creeds that all these various organized religions have tried to foist upon me. Okay, I have my own personal interpretation and connection to that. Point being is that if you track back to the original etymological roots of so many of these cultures in the Near East and elsewhere, they're describing quite specifically in the language of the vernacular at that time, not only non-human beings, not only at times flesh and blood beings, but they're specifically describing beings that have a serpent-like, lizard-like, reptilian appearance. They're very specific about this. And also the depictions of the craft, the celestial wonders, the wonders of the sky at the time, they didn't have our kind of vernacular, our kind of language. They described it in a language that was common and familiar to that point in time and that era. So they referred to flying shields, flying boats, celestial boats, etc., etc. Mauro Buglino did a lot of work in this as far as the Old Testament is concerned. but also Pierre Salbach points out that if you look at a term heavenly host, for example, there's two particular meanings for that are interconnected. Heavenly host refers to, on the one hand, an invading army. This is why you hear accounts in ancient times of an invading host, what have you. But also, host refers to the crew of a naval vessel. So if you're talking about a celestial boat, a celestial craft, a celestial vessel, and you're referring to heavenly host, for the period of time we're talking about, the people in those days were referring specifically to the crew members of said celestial boat, celestial craft, celestial conveyance. Okay. They're being very specific. They're talking about the crew members of these craft. And it should be pointed out that the evidence for the reality of a non-human presence here on Earth, it's always been there. There's this notion, specifically among the surface level, what I call the surface level truth community, that any manifestation of aliens, any manifestation of what they're now referring to as UAPs, I love how they just like to redefine everything, move the goalposts, that it's all just a manifestation of blue beam, that we're not supposed to believe that aliens really exist, that we're only up against power mad bankers. But that mindset bespeaks a fundamental lack of faith in humanity. And let me explain. There were over 100 firsthand witnesses to Roswell, and Roswell was not even the first crash retrieval of an alien craft, not by a long shot. 1897 in the Fort Worth, Dallas, what we now know as the Metroplex area, there was a crash retrieval of one of the airships in the great 1896-97 UFO
the Aurora.
wave. The Aurora around that area, correct. And so when you hear people that are very prominent in the surface level truth community say there's no proof, aliens don't exist, there have been no crash retrievals, there have been no recovered alien bodies, that bespeaks a complete lack of faith in humanity, because we've had countless firsthand witnesses, never mind all the alien abduction accounts, okay, but actually being there in specific locations. By the time 1979 rolled around, Leonard Stringfield, the late great crash retrieval researcher, had already amassed 50 firsthand witnesses who had seen either alien bodies or alien craft at a secure installation, or had taken part in some measure in the retrieval of a crashed or downed alien craft. So the hardware, the technology has been there all along. Why doesn't this congressional inquiry, why don't they seek out people like Bob Lazar? Why don't they seek out people like Larry Warren, a personal friend of mine, who was one of the Air Force security personnel who was at Rendlesham Forest? Look at all the harassment, all the trolling, all the abuse meted out. And you know what the abuse aspect is all about, Josh. But you look at all the abuse meted out to Larry Warren, that he was there, he was within touching distance of a landed craft in a clearing of a craft surrounded by 40 Air Force security personnel. He names names, he names the times, the dates, everything, right? And as time goes on, we know that those of us who've taken the Rendlesham Forest in particular seriously, we know that Rendlesham really happened the way that Larry describes it on the third night. Okay, there was a series of nights leading up to the event that Larry Warren, Sergeant Adrian Bustinza, a number of other people were involved in. So why don't they seek out the opinion of Larry Warren and Bob Lazar and others? And Donald Schmidt, who I've recently had on my show, he was one of the key Roswell researchers. He pointed out that they simply waited for the Roswell witnesses to die out. Long before cancel culture, long before doxing, long before the harassment and intimidation meted out to surface level truthers, the military at Walker Field, what we think of as the Roswell Army Airfield, were going door to door in Roswell, harassing witnesses, ripping apart their house, looking for alien wreckage, alien material. Sheriff George Wilcox, who was at one of the crash sites and probably in all likelihood seen the alien bodies, maybe even the living alien, He was told by the military that if you don't keep your mouth shut, we're not only going to kill you, we're going to kill your entire family, including your grandchildren. Think about that. So long before all this harassment, doxing, cancel culture, what have you, those people at Roswell who formerly had venerated the military, it was the 509th Composite Bomb Group that dropped the nukes on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And many people feel ended the war, but that's a whole nother story. But before Roswell, they venerated the military. After Roswell, they were intimidated, cowed into silence. And yeah, I mean, you look at the rancher, Mac Brazel, he was held in detention for several days. He said he was in jail. They gave him a full body cavity search for no other reason than to degrade, humiliate, and intimidate him. Okay? So how many of these surface level truthers out there who say aliens don't exist, it's all just blue beam, it's all just, you know, a holographic projection? How many of them can say that? And I don't have a time to get into it, but if you look at the amount of alien investigators and people who've had firsthand encounters with aliens, how many of them have been bumped off over the years compared to those that are just studying the surface level fiat currency, Federal Reserve conspiracy, false flag attacks, et cetera, et cetera? If you were to look at how many of the alien investigators and witnesses have died or had untimely deaths or outright murdered, suicided, compared to the surface population who study 9/11 and all the various conspiracies around Contra, it's not even close. By many orders of magnitude, those people who have studied alien investigations, seriously studied, because it goes into very, very dark realms. Thankfully, David Paulides has started coming out talking about missing 411, the alien connection. I'm thankful that he's done that, but that's the tip of the iceberg. Because if you talk to some of the real players in our field, they'll talk not only about missing persons on the surface, because sometimes they abduct people and never bring them back, but we're talking about underground processing plants where humans are being harvested for as a food resource and other resources. Okay, so we're talking. This is being done on an industrial scale, all around the globe, underground, and has been going on for centuries, if not millennia. So I just want to emphasize that there have been efforts to keep this under a lid for whatever reason, and I think part of the reason is that the alien activity is going through the roof. We must always remember, I am in this camp that our solar system is subject to celestially driven cyclical cataclysms. The Younger Dryas event, that's just one example. But every 9,000, 12,000 years or so, whether it's a galactic superwave that Paul Laviolette talks about, whether whatever the case may be, not only our planet, but the whole solar system undergoes a mega reset, which usually results, as far as Earth is concerned, in the radical culling of the surface population, not only of people, but of animals as well. And so we're right on the cusp of the next phase of the cyclically driven celestial cataclysm. So the non-human controllers of this planet, and I must emphasize the people that a lot of these truthers hate on, people like Hillary Clinton, et cetera, they are the hybrid reptilian human plantation managers of the planet. They are plantation managers. And people ask,
you know what? Hey, James, I'm gonna stop just for a second. I want to interject. You're absolutely right. And what people don't realize is that there is actually there's a lot of clues in this that tell you. And I'm talking like even like in music and things like that. Like when Jim Morrison talks about the Lizard King, the Lizard King.
I am the Lizard King.
The reptilian overlord of the inner earth. He calls himself the king of the world.
Yes.
And they've been at war, of course, with another species, but we can get into all that. That's the purpose of what I'm going to tell you, folks. This is, like he said, tip of the ice. This is tip of the iceberg, and we're going to do this every Saturday for 2 months because I believe that this is going to give us a lot of answers. This may be possibly, and this may be a bold statement, I don't know, the biggest project I've ever undertaken. I've had 2 successful conferences, books. I'm writing a 3rd one about MK Ultra, but this right here may be the most important one of all, because I think we're going to get a lot of answers about these things. And people who are interested in Dogman, Bigfoot, the ghosts and what they are, the reality of the demons, angels, whatever, I think a lot of it is right here. I mean, I think you're going to learn a lot, folks. I really want you to tune in on Saturdays because this is where we're going to learn. And that's why I picked these gentlemen, because not only are they personal friends of mine, but they're very, very, very smart people. Okay. I'm not going to put a dummy in front of you and be like, hey, listen to this guy talk. No. So, Chris, let me ask you, because James, you could go on for, we could have James and Jason, both of y'all.
Right here.
Y'all can talk until next Tuesday. But Chris, what are your thoughts on what's been said and what I presented at the beginning?
Yeah, it makes you wonder about all of the sightings that people have been having. Bigfoot, Dogman, different bizarre creatures. And it makes me wonder how much of this is flesh and blood and how many of these creatures are actually like a projection being put forth by what I referred to on one of my shows as the oscuros, the unseen alien creatures that feed on people's emotions. How many times you hear about a person, they're in the woods and they have a Bigfoot encounter and this thing chases them and they run. Now, who is physically capable of outrunning Bigfoot? You know, those things get great big long legs. They live in the woods. They can see in the dark. And yet somehow these people escape. And the only thing that makes any sense as far as I'm concerned is they're not dealing with a flesh and blood, hair covered creature that lives in the woods. They're dealing with some kind of an alien entity that is trying to scare the heck out of them so that they can feed on this energy coming off of the person. Otherwise, why would they escape? You got the Bigfoot people that they get all mad and they turn purple in the face if you mention Bigfoot and UFOs in the same sentence.
Yeah.
I've had to deal with a few of those folks. And yet, how many times have you heard accounts where bright lights are seen or orbs are seen in the woods, followed by a Bigfoot or a Dogman encounter? When I was in Huntsville at the first South Texas Bigfoot conference, the one where Jeff Stewart was on stage, and I met a man who was telling me a bunch of stories about he lived and worked in the Sam Houston National Forest. He was one of their fire control experts, and he was telling about how he had noticed over the years that there would be a UFO sighting, several of them over the forest, and then there would be a whole bunch of Bigfoot sightings in the forest. And he said, and then there would be a whole bunch of missing people reports. I was so fascinated by what this guy was telling me. I was writing notes as he was talking. I didn't get his name. I forgot to write it down, and I haven't been able to get a hold of the guy. I guess he doesn't listen to my show, which isn't that surprising. But his stories were fascinating, and he worked for the government, so he was kind of, don't tell anybody what I said. Maybe he just didn't give me his name. But you've got all these reports of all these things going on, encounters, sightings, people being abducted even. How much of it is related and how much of it is separate little paranormal things all going on at once? You got Bigfoot, Dogman, you've got the lizard people, you've got thousands, really, if you go and do the digging, thousands of creatures that are running around scaring the heck out of people. A lot of them are very cultural. La Llorona, you don't run into her up north anywhere. I hear about her all the time down here. La Lechuza. I know people that swear they ran into her.
I got one of those accounts
in town, but you don't hear about that in Chicago. So, well, I guess you'd start hearing about Chicago now, but it's a cultural thing. So could these aliens be sending a false impression into people's minds because they know, okay, well, this guy looks Hispanic. Let's hit him with the La Lechuza or La Llorona. All right, this guy looks like he's some white guy from Norway. Let's hit him up with the dwarves and the elves and things. You know, the thing that I have to say, and I say it a lot, we don't know. We can look, we can examine, we can dig, we can ask questions, but we still don't know. And unfortunately, that's the world we live in.
What do you think about this? What do you think about this, Chris? Now you're on that subject. The Shaver mysteries. Now, people remember, Fate magazine, did some covers on that. They talked about it. It's really that's a weird thing because the Darrow, they talk about the Darrow as being these dwarf-like creatures, and they have the ability to project. They live in the inner earth. There was a book written called Edda Dorpa, I Am the Man. Yeah. You have these really weird, the smoky god. It talks about the inner earth. And a lot of people believe that these beings, they may hail from somewhere else, but they all seem to congregate and live within the earth. And of course, it's supported biblically in Revelations. It says that those will be judged living upon them within the earth. And then the book of Job, which we got into a little bit when you were a guest on my show, Jason, and we talked about that. And then Job, it says the Elohim. It's really, to me, though, and this is what I believe. I believe it's the Elohim, which is like a sky council or a group of people. And they actually talk to the Shaitan, which are an evil race of beings. And, some people say it's monotheistic. I think it's plurality. But I know that in the Old Testament, they kind of rolled it all together so it fit cohesively to be one particular being. But it says, that behold Job, there's none like him, and then of course, according to the Jewish tradition, it's the Hebrew tradition that it's God says to Satan, it's one-on-one. I tend to disagree, but that's just my opinion. And of course, Job predates Genesis, but he says, where hast thou been? He says, I've been walking to and fro upon and within the earth. Now, I think that passage is very important. That he says and it's in every language. That's not like a translation thing where you can change it around and say, well, it doesn't really say that. No, it does. Yeah. And it says there that that walks within the earth. That's important because it's saying that there is something down there below our feet. This is a huge place. And, to think that only we would live on the surface is kind of silly, and really and truly living inside the earth would make more sense because you would be protected from the harmful rays of the UV rays of the sun. And so you wouldn't really want to live on the surface of most planets. And life, like, okay, I was talking to a molecular biologist the other day. I talked about this on my show. And he said, we were talking about life, right? And he was talking about, how life exists and this and that. And he has one of his hobbies is basically like studying the cosmos. And I'm that way too. I've always looked toward the stars and I always felt like something was there that I needed to be, even as a kid, I was attracted to Battlestar Galactica, Star Wars, Star Trek. I liked all of it. It was crazy. And I never knew why. My grandfather used to always call me Star Kid because I was always wanting to be up in the stars in a spaceship. And so, this guy's talking, and I said, Carl Sagan, he says we should look for life as not just as we know it, but as we don't understand it. And I think that if you were to look at everything as carbon-based, right? We believe that everything is carbon-based. But what if there could be other types of life that are silicon-based? And he said that would take an enormously cold place, blah, 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 blah. And I said, well, what about Europa? I mean, it's, Saturn, this one of the moons that would be most habitable. And of course, we've heard stories of people being abducted and actually talking to their captors, and they show them these maps and things. And they're like, this is where you're at in the cosmos. This is where we're from, and they talk about life being in different places, but it's not something that we could comprehend or understand. Now, that could easily just be you're in out your body, you're out of your body. But what are your thoughts on that, guys? I mean, I guess we can start with you, Jason. What do you think about that as the life as we don't understand it? And how does that pertain to us on Earth? And who are these beings? Like, I mean, what do you think?
Well, first of all, I think if you want to find life as you don't understand it, just go to Walmart at 12 a.m. However, so this is one of those things I'd like to point out. If you traveled back in time 600 years, right, and you wanted to try and explain viruses and bacteria, they wouldn't understand you. Not because they weren't smart enough, but because there was no way of observing anything that just wasn't even on the table, right? The problem that I do think this is one problem that we have in our community as well. We often, and this is a human condition, so it's not anyone in particular. We all do it, and I think this may play into that part that Chris was mentioning. Why do some of these things appear as different things to different people? And it's because it may be that the reality of this isn't on the table from a scientific perspective, right? The modern conceit is we've got cell phones and cars and satellites, and so we're so smart and we like everything to fit within a scientific box, right? It's like, well, we can put labels on things, and it's like, here's the problem: we don't have a way of objectively observing all of reality. There may be something out there, an aspect of reality that we're just so completely ignorant of, just like they were ignorant of microbiology and cells and all of that 600 years ago, because we didn't have microscopes. There may be an aspect of reality that we are completely we have just no way of really understanding. And so all of these things are attempts to understand that life. Yes, well, is there life? Yes, we know there's life out there. It's now, again, I have no problem using the word supernatural, because that may be the best version of language that we have for it. We tend to fight that language because of religious connotations, but that may be the better word. I think we tried to overly materialize a lot of this stuff, because what if it's not silicon based but energy based, right? Or dimensionally based, however, whatever, put whatever Star Trek word you want to throw on it. It's still a supernatural being, and that may be the higher reality. We may not need to be looking at life on other planets that's material. We may be dealing with something that's living in what we would call a higher plane of existence, a higher dimension, right? Pick your word. And that's what's interacting with us. And maybe the reason it keeps changing forms, culturally, is because it may not even necessarily be choosing that form all the time. It may be how our brains co-creating it. Because through our expectations. Now, there are certainly overlaps, right? La Lechusa, the Harpies, and Siren, classic Sirens, classic Lilith, they all have a lot of overlap, right? The fine details are different. The Duende, or in certain forms of elves and trolls, like the little people mythologies that are all over the world. Again, fine details change. However, broad cultural, broader themes are the same. It may be that these things have an appearance to themselves, but our brains are culturally interpreting them from our frame of reference. As an artist, this is the one thing I have to keep telling people: you don't ever actually see anything. What we think of as seeing things, your eye is brain matter. Our eyes are not necessarily something separate from the brain. It is an extension of the brain. It takes in information, and your brain figures out what it's looking at.
Yeah.
This is how art works. This is how optical illusions work. One of my favorite things that I've ever seen was this black and white image. It just looks like black and white splotches. That's all you can see, right? He says, "What is it?" I'm like, "I don't know. It's black and white splotches." He said, "It's a cow." And the second he said cow, I saw everything. It wasn't a drawing. It was an actual photograph, but with high contrast. As soon as my brain's like, "Oh, I know how to do this. I know what a cow is." It recognized everything. So the problem is we don't actually ever see it. Our brains are literally creating all of it. This is how optical illusions work. It may be that with these things, right, that these things are supernatural. That a lot of this is probably actually happening more in our brains than we realize, and that our brains are creating them out of our cultural understanding. Again, not saying that there isn't a physical presence here. The Lechusa story I have, the thing was bending trees over by its weight, right? Again, we have stories of Nephilim, which, by the way, James, I like the fact that you pointed out, cannibalism seems to be a constant theme with the Nephilim. So,
which is so forbidden in every holy book. It's been forbidden. Every book. I mean,
everyone. But they seem to have a taste for it, as do certain people. We'll leave that one alone. But my point is, I think the problem is I think we often get into this rush to be like, okay, we can put it in a test tube and we'll understand it. We may not ever be able to understand the phenomena in its entirety. What we need to ask is it conveying itself to us the way it is, or is it deliberately changing its form, or is it just interacting with us in a way that we can understand it? Then we can ask, well, is it malicious? Well, what if there's different forces? Right? What if there are different sides? Again, Elohim just means spirit, right? I mean, it's translated as God or gods multiple times, pretty much consistently. And that's not an incorrect translation. The problem is when we see the word God, we ascribe certain meaning to it that wasn't there in the original text. Essentially, it would be like saying spirit. A lot of the First Nations people talk about the Great Spirit, right? It's an ecosystem of supernatural beings upon which, when a human dies, their spirit becomes an Elohim, right? When Samuel was called up, it says it's an Elohim. Well, he's not a god, but that's the whole point, is they're just saying you belong on that side. You go back to a lot of the older stories, a lot of the older myths. There is no real division between a dead spirit, the spirit of a dead human, and these other creatures, right? Regardless of what you're calling them, there doesn't seem to be that overlap, or rather, they seem to see them as all the same thing, meaning they belong. Like there's a veil, they belong over there. So, like I said, I got no problem saying supernatural, because that may be the type of life that we're actually interacting with. It's just something that's beyond, this crude matter, as Yoda would say, and it's higher. It's energy based. And therefore is sort of outside of our normal ability to even understand it or perceive it. And so that's kind of, instead of looking for silicone or carbon, we may be looking for something so alien we can't comprehend it directly.
Yeah, I think that was part and part. That's pretty much what you hit the nail on the head. Before I throw it to you, James, I have another question, and this is just, for me personally, we kind of talked about the cannibalism thing. It's almost like, it's talked about in many, many cultures as like one of the worst things you could possibly do. I mean, it is like the absolute lowest of the sin, but this seems to be something that they hold up in high regard. Like this is something that they do almost ritualistically. And it's like something that they do to kind of like, it's like a finger in our eye and in the eyes of our God, which is, the one true God. And of course, it seems to be, like a common theme. And then, of course, you have the whole blood drinking. You hear about the adrenochrome and all this other stuff that's going on. And that's something that people have claimed that those that engage in, sometimes people will see them with their eyes slitted up and things, of that nature. And that it brings out something in that amygdala, just kind of like opens it up. And I wonder, if that's the whole point, because we all have that reptilian side of us. And of course, if you start getting off into the whole, like the Luciferian Satanism, a lot of it is about becoming a beast. It's a bestial thing where it's like do what thou wilt and letting yourself go and doing anything, whether it's murder, sex, any kind of whatever, it doesn't matter. It's okay. And not holding yourself responsible or accountable for your sin. And it seems like these beings, a lot of what they preach to abductees too, is that, we're being liberated in some form or another because they're nice enough to grace us with their presence. And we're from a higher plane of existence, and we're doing you a favor, releasing you from this silly notion of God or religion, Jesus, whatever. And you should cast off that and go and, be whatever it is that you're going to be, because you're really just an animal.
Yeah.
Like the movie Legend, he says we are all just animals, and of course he's the devil saying that.
Mhm.
And then you have these little minions of his, and I think it's very telling too that every culture, like what we were talking about earlier, they have these ideas of what is supposed to be, but it's all relative toward the person who's getting the information. And then the brain, like you said, it creates this image of what it is. And but if you notice, like with children, and we were all children once, right? When you were a child, you saw things more clearly. And I know this. I'm not going to say I have ESP, but I have an ability to close my eyes, and I can actually see with my mind's eye. And sometimes I can see through things, and I can find things clearly by shutting out the outside world and closing my eyes. And I can sit there and just meditate on a dime and just kind of find my way. And I think that if more people could get in touch with these, what I call the mind, body, spirit connection, and make it all become one, then you would start to see things with the true eyes, which is the one that your spirit is trying to show you. And you will be able to like ascertain and have discernment, and I think that's most important. And I noticed that that's a big theme of these beings too, is also just shutting off that to where you can't see the true reality. And I think a lot of it has to do with, well, what like our colleague said the other day at dinner, Jason Jordan, he said, this is a black mirror.
Yeah.
When you turn it off, it's a black mirror. And
Yep.
then the TVs, the smart TVs, I mean, let's be honest. I mean, it's black mirror. I mean, you can see it.
Yeah.
It's like it's something, there's something there. I mean, I get stories all the time. In fact, I'm about to drop an episode in a couple of weeks about just about that. People, I've already talked about Alexa and Siri and all these things, telling kids to do things like told one kid to light its house on fire. And the mom was like, that's not true. And then she heard it. I mean, it's like, yeah, what is that? Well, the TV is really just a black mirror. And who knows what's in that black mirror? Well, a lot of people are claiming to see some really weird stuff. And I don't think they're all crazy, especially when you got people from all around the world that are talking about it. One of my friends from Hong Kong told me, he's like, dude, I was looking at my TV and I saw a dragon looking thing looking at me.
Yeah.
What is that? And I said, Church, I don't know what that is, but there's other people who've told me about it. And so it jump started my mind going like, what is this? Like, what's happening here? This goes far deeper than anything we can imagine. Things that appear like spirit looking things coming out of these TVs, because it is a black mirror. Now, I know everything I just said was kind of scattered, but let's bring it together and let's go to you, James, and let's see what are your thoughts on some of what I just spoke about.
Thank you for sharing that, Josh. And to echo what Jason talked about, the beings have this habit, beings of various stripes, of appearing to a given culture, a given people in a given era in a way that the recipients are comfortable with. For example, the Japanese sun goddess, or depending on your source, sun god, Amaterasu, shows up as like this highly advanced Japanese looking being, which makes sense. Well, why would they show up looking like a Nordic? Nordic? Why would they show up looking like a shaman, like a Zulu shaman? No, they're going to show up, not every time. It's not a hard and fast rule, but often as not, as a being in appearance that the recipients can relate to. Another example would be the white calf buffalo woman, if you remember that story, right? They're going to show up to the locals and appear in a way that's understandable, which is disarming to them. Not to ascribe any kind of nefarious motive or whatever for the visitation, but okay, this is how religions get started, right? So another point we must remember is that Tesla said it best. He said, with resonance, everything is possible. Jacques Vallée had, and I give him credit for the work he's done. He's pointed out the work of William Evans Wentz, who wrote the great book, the Fairy Faith in Celtic Countries, and he also talked about the book written by E.S. Hartland, The Fairy Faith. Those are, if you're a UFO, serious alien abduction UFO researcher, you got to plug into those books.
Yes.
But what Vallée did, which I thought was not so good, was he tried to create this artificial fault line between the extraterrestrial hypothesis on the one hand and the interdimensional hypothesis on the other. Because he went into the old routine about how the vast distances of interstellar space, et cetera, et cetera. But that not only does that sidestep the hardware element, which Ben Rich has talked about and others, and people who've spoken to Ben Rich, the late director of Lockheed Skunk Works, that this alien, lack of a better term, technology exists, has been secreted away, oftentimes winds up in the hand in private, i.e., aerospace corporation hands, and from that they create all this back engineering, what have you. But on the other hand, this notion that it can only either be extraterrestrial or interdimensional, that is presupposing these other advanced civilizations have not figured out how to operate not only in our cosmos, but in other dimensions. Those of us who have had astral experiences, out of body experiences, which can delve into alternate reality experiences, if you want to get right down to it, we know that where consciousness goes, potentially, depending on the energy output, what have you, and certain energetic astronomical alignments, whatever the case may be, where consciousness goes, matter can go also. So what Jacques Vallée did was give us a notion that it cannot be extraterrestrial; it has to be interdimensional. That can only explain the vast number of sightings down through the ages. But I would remind people of a story that Bill Hamilton told me. Bill Hamilton's long since been out of this field, but he was one of the great investigators in the high desert of Southern California. One of his sources was a Marine sergeant, U.S. Marine sergeant with a technical background named Sergeant Suggs. And in the early period of the U.S. involvement in Vietnam, 1958, there was an alien crash retrieval in Vietnam, and the craft was brought on board the USS Oriskany aircraft carrier. Some of your listeners may be familiar. They threw a tarp over the craft, and the Oriskany brought it back to America, probably my old stomping grounds where my dad was based, Naval Air Station Alameda. Point being is that within that craft, Sergeant Suggs says there is a device which we refer to as an interspatial resonator. And what this device does is it allows the occupants of the craft to alter the resonance, the frequency of the craft itself and the occupants within it to match or phase into, if you will, another dimension, another universe entirely. Think of two universes side by side as bubbles, as soap bubbles, and they're next to each other. They're connected, but they're both pulsing at different frequencies. So, you have two distinct realms essentially. Well, what the interspatial resonator does is it allows the occupants of the craft to adjust the vibrational frequency, the resonance of the craft and the occupants to comfortably merge, go into another universe entirely, another realm, dimension entirely. So to me, this notion that, well, it can only be interdimensional, it cannot be extraterrestrial, that's a red herring, because some of these beings are so far advanced of us. And in some of these civilizations, the Zeta Reticulian civilization, at least one of them, that Bob Lazar, who worked on their technology, pointed out that Zeta Reticuli being a binary star system, there would be, and this is probably the case in other star systems, naturally occurring elements which you will not find on planet Earth. And some could argue, well, like some of the larger gaseous giants in the outer part of the solar system are unlit stars. Okay, that's all well and good, but we only have, besides, that's a whole nother story. Nibiru, the second sun, that's a whole nother story. But in other star systems where it's a binary or multiple star system, they will have other elements which we don't have. And if you just look at all the mischief and the problems that have ensued just from the mining and the enrichment of just uranium 238, and what they've been able to do with that and create out of that plutonium 239 in breeder reactors. Okay, now imagine in another star system, which is a binary or multiple star system, what they can come up with. And also, I'm satisfied by now, based on my discussions with people who have had legitimate MyLab experiences. And my definition of a MyLab is someone who has legitimate alien abduction experiences, usually multi-generationally, but also on occasion, sometimes quite frequently, they're kidnapped, for lack of a better term, by deep black elements of the military, mind controlled, abused, tortured, and trained as essentially an operational asset, not only in their physical body, but also as astral operators. Okay. So it's clear to me that not only do these non-human beings have the ability to astrally abduct us, and many of your viewers and listeners, Josh, knows what an astral abduction is. Okay. But it
We just
seems to me
talked
that
about that.
not only do aliens, for lack of a better term, have the means to do this, but increasingly to me, deep black elements of the military have the means, whole nother story, to astrally abduct people, submerge them into a virtual environment, train them, put them through their paces, whatever the case may be. So it's not mutually exclusive. This notion of the extraterrestrial hypothesis and the interdimensional hypothesis, to me, it's two sides of the same coin. And there's no doubt in my mind that certain elements of the deep black military aerospace community, not only, as Ben Rich says, can travel the stars, but there's also an element that allows them to operate interdimensionally. Just leave it at that for a while.
What you were just talking about, though, like the astral abduction, we were just talking about that on the show. I don't know if it was, I don't think it was last night. It might have been. Anyways, we talk about so much stuff, but we were talking about a woman who was abducted, and she was taken out of her body, and she could see her body, and she's being taken, through her house, like being, escorted away. And there was this other entity that was in the house that would appear in the house that may or may not have been related to it. But when she was out of her body being taken by these alien beings or whatever the hell they are, she could see that other entity, like kind of watching and observing. They don't have anything to do with each other. It's very possible, but they're on the same plane of existence.
Yeah.
We've also had stories, and we've talked about them on the show, of people who have seen these aliens. Like, one story was really, really telling to me. It was incredible. This guy, he was very adamant that this happened. Like, these aliens had come into his room, and there was this demonic presence that he would see in this house, and it attacked one of them. And he was like, like he witnessed this, I mean, and he told me, Anthony, Tony, and then we repeated the story on the show, but it was like him actually witnessing this, like some sort of like, and then these things were gone. They were like, goodbye, whatever. So that put an end to that. And it wasn't like, and people think, well, they're all the bad all works together. And that's a big that does not happen. Okay. Yeah. It's black on black. It's bad on bad. There's no good guys in that. Okay. But the thing is, they're not all friends. I mean, it's a jungle out there, and it's dog eat dog, and whatever happens. We also, I'm sure you guys have heard the story of the Greys, who I will go out and say that I believe they're like a mercenary race, biological robots, and they were arguing with the Reptilian because they wanted to kill this woman, and they were like, no, not on our ship. And the Reptilian was like, I'm going to do it. And they're like, no, you're not. And so they were fighting, arguing for her life. She was under no illusion that these Greys gave a crap about her, but they just didn't want the murder to happen on their ship. And this Reptilian got mad and struck out at one of the Greys, essentially killing it, or at least she thought it was, being unalived. But these things are not friends. They're not all friends, and they fight, and they fracture, and they have factions, and they think of the war in Dulce. Like they were at war. I mean, there were some of the Reptilians, the lower ranking ones, decided to rebel with the humans, and it didn't work out too well for them because the Dracos are way too strong. But there is something else too. Now, I don't know if you gentlemen know this, but I've actually done a lot of work on in certain computer companies in this area. I have access to security because I run a firm, and so I know people who are heads of security at these places, and they've given me stories, and I've talked to some of the workers, and they've told me when people visit from Asia or Europe, these big, the big wigs or whatever, there's a spike in activity around their campuses. And a lot of these campuses, they'll have like 30, 40 acre campuses, right?
Right.
And they will see these dogman werewolf looking creatures. And then one of the guys came on my show, and he talked about it on a live stream, on a Friday night live stream about 2 years ago. We call him Big Nick. He's a big African-American dude. He's a good friend of mine. I used to work security with him for like 10 years. And he got on the show and he said, look, I was in an elevator and I saw this guy, this dude. I mean, he was from Europe and his eyes changed, and he goes, and I'm looking at it in the elevator, and I'm like, what the heck is that? He's like seeing it, and the guy's like moving his face around. He's like, so I just kept staring at my phone, pretending like I was looking at my phone. And Nick is no punk. He's from Chicago. He's a big, big, big dude. And I've seen him knock a lot of people unconscious and used to work for me. And I'm like, this is not a sissy, and he goes, I was scared out of my mind, Wolf. He goes, I thought this thing was going to eat me. He's like, it was a reptilian right there next to me. And the other guy next to him just kept talking and they acted like it was perfectly normal. Well, at that same time, the head of security, not at that exact same time, but later on, the head of security had told me that they had a sighting of this werewolf-looking creature. So myself, my wife, my brother, and my nephews, we went and we walked around the campus and they showed us where it had happened. And you could see from the tree level, this thing had to have been about 8 feet tall. And what was so telling to me, what just brought it home, is when I traced the timeline back and having interviewed 3 of the security guards and 2 of the workers, it coincided with the same time that these reptilians were there. I mean, say reptilians are there, but I mean, the guy changed into whatever it was he changed into. And there were 2 other people saying that they saw something very similar from these people. You're sitting there going like, what is that? I mean, and why is it happening at the same time?
Yeah.
I mean, there's got to be something to there. Where there's smoke, there's fire. And so, your imagination starts to go, hey, what's going on here? So you got to bring yourself in, get yourself under control, because I got pretty excited about this. I thought, man, there's a connection here. Are these beings coming, to visit their strongholds or whatever they have, their holdings, and then they bring their pets with them? Are these other people shifting into whatever it is that they're supposed to be doing? They have bodyguards. The dog man has always been seen like as a Lodal, Anubis, and different cultures. It's seen as a guardian, a spirit that's, a lot of times are found in cemeteries. I think that their objective under the Anunnaki was a gateway. They protected the gateways. And if you just came walking out of one and you weren't supposed to be there, you would get attacked and probably devoured by this pet. And now a lot of them are just running around loose, and that could be what we're dealing with. I'm just throwing I'm spitballing here, but
Cerberus, the 3-headed dog that guarded the gateway into Hades,
Cerberus,
Cerberus could be a metaphor for what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they guard the underworld, and in the underworld being like it's like Jason says, when you're out of your body, you're in the presence of these beings, and of course the translations turn into gods or whatever. But it says in the Bible to be out of the bodies, to be present with God, to be present with the Lord. But who's to interpret how and what God truly is? What is this? What are we dealing with here? You were hitting on some points too, James. You have so much knowledge about this, and when you were talking, I was sitting there shaking my head because this is like, to those who are not initiated, there has been a massive cover-up of this stuff. And I'm telling you, it's right there in plain sight. But the problem, and all you gentlemen, very well-read gentlemen, you know this, is that the book can literally be right in front of them, and it's just going to gather dust because people don't want to pick it up and open it and read it. They'd rather just not. And they want everybody to spoon-feed it to you. Folks, dude, some of these books, you have to go and read these, and you have to listen to what these people are saying. And you got to understand something. Anytime one person speaks out, it's one person, right? They just squash them like it's nothing. But if you get people together, it's the whole broken stick thing. A bunch of sticks you can't break. One stick, and it's over. And what's happening right now is one stick. He's crazy. He's an idiot. He's a loser. Disgruntled. Whatever. Debunk. If we all started sticking together, and that's my whole thing. Is the fields are so divided. And even trying to unify your own little niche field is like pulling teeth. It's war. I know, because I'm in it. And then you're fighting against elements. These people are controlled. They're controlled opposition. I'm telling you. And James, we had a long talk about this, you and I. And these people are controlled opposition. I mean, literally. And they're there to be a stumbling block. That's their whole mission. That's their agents of the Kali Yuga is what I call them. And unification is most important because everybody has a piece of the puzzle, and I'm willing to share everything I have. But not everybody's like me. Not everybody's like you, gentlemen. A lot of people, they don't want to play, and they don't want to be nice, and they don't want to share. And everybody wants their own little feudal kingdom, and they want to be the boss of it. And everybody wants to take credit. And I don't give a crap who takes credit. I just want to see justice be done. I want to see the truth come out, and I want to see this world be what it's supposed to be. And the goodness needs to be nurtured, and that's not what's happening now. That's not what's happening now. And I'm not going to sit here and say that the whole world is run by reptilian overlords, but the whole world is run by reptilian overlords. I'm just saying, regardless of what you think they are, yeah. I mean, it's really true. I mean, and they are running on their basic, emotion and raw, whatever, because they don't have any other reason to exist but to eat and to have control. I mean, they're literally like hyper intelligent crocodiles. And I'm not joking. If you think for 1 second they give a damn about you or your thoughts, your feelings or whatever, no, we are just here as a food supply, and we're pretty much in the way. They just really want us out of the way because they want to dominate this planet and take control of it like they've done so many other places. And there is a higher purpose for us. There is a higher purpose for us. And that's when I encourage people to look into Christ. You don't have to look into it as a religion. Look into it following him and what he really was trying to, because he's here to bring us out of this. And this is a matrix, Chris, your thoughts on what James was talking about earlier? What you want to add to that, or do you have anything to say about that? What James was saying earlier?
Oh, he was talking about the if I've got a lot of information piling in all at once. The thing about how we don't know what an alien might look like, how it may present itself. The idea of the vibrations, how they can raise or lower a person's vibrations. Because how many times you hear about somebody was laying in bed and the next thing they know, they're being carried out through the wall of their house.
Yep.
If you change the vibrations of the atoms, which we're all made up of atoms, never trust atoms. They make up everything. If you take an atom and you look at it, it's not a solid thing. It's neutrons, protons, they're circling around each other. So if you could get the vibration of that atom to where it separates all the atoms in a person's body, you could just walk out through the wall with them, because the wall could also have its vibrations changed. And it makes it, these people that they think they know what aliens are, they think they know what they look like, they could look like anything. They could look like us. They could look like reptiles. Maybe the reptilians don't even look like reptiles. Maybe that is the image that they took on, because they know that most people don't care for reptiles, the snake in the Bible and all. And so it could be they're using this vibrational energy to abduct people. And if that's the case, I don't know I'm ever going to get a good night's sleep again. As far as bringing everybody together, you might as well, that's like trying to get Congress to do something good.
It's like herding cats, man.
Yes.
That's the kind of black pill I'm here for.
Yeah.
Bill Burns was telling about when he went to Stevensville here in Texas to look into the massive sightings.
Oh, yeah.
And now he's doing a TV show, UFO Hunters. They get to town and they're trying to interview the people that had seen the giant spaceship. And some of these people are saying, hey, this other UFO guy said that we shouldn't talk to you because you're connected with the government. Or other UFO investigators were saying, oh, no, this is my story. I talked to this guy first. I own the story. The UFO community is about as unified as I can't think of a dust storm. Getting
that
people.
you know that's like that in
Oh.
the cryptid field, in the ghost community.
yeah.
All of them.
And but you know what though, I look at it like this, and I'm going to tell you, gentlemen, here, I've said this before.
Mhm.
My hero, Oda Nobunaga, I'm telling you, if it wasn't for him, he would never have unified Japan. And even to this day, and one of my friends, he's from Osaka, he's a really good friend of mine, he says that there are people that look at him as the devil still to this day.
Yeah.
Because their clans were subjugated or destroyed by, of course, by his people, by his underlings, eventually Tokugawa, Toyotomi, Shinjin, but those guys, his generals, they carried on the legacy of what he started. And he said, he goes, we're always going to be subject to the continent, which is like basically China, Korea, or the Mongols, as long as we're not together. They nearly lost everything 2 or 3 times because of that, and it was only like these little unstable makeshift alliances. And the Greeks did the same thing. Argos didn't want to participate with Thebes, and Thebes didn't want to work with Sparta. Sparta didn't want to work with Athens. And Darius is like, oh, this is it. Or Xerxes, take your pick. The Persians were like, we're on our way. And these little turds don't know what's going to hit them. And then, by some miracle, the Hellenistic cultures managed to bind together. Well, the Japanese needed to do the same thing. And Nobunaga, he chose a very unceremonious time. I mean, he shouldn't have done what he did. I mean, like, he went there and threw like ashes on his dad's grave and was like, yeah, whatever. I'm not into rituals and whatever, shiny things. I'm into doing what needs to be done. And at that point, he had to start off fighting his own family. And then from his own family, he had to fight his town. And then from his town, he had to fight the other towns. And then from there, he had to fight that particular province. And then the next province. And then he had to, and it just went on. And eventually, of course, he died before he could ever, achieve his objective. And everybody said it couldn't be done. Everybody said it couldn't be done. Even the familial allies were like, this is impossible. It's like herding cats. You'll never do this. He said, he's like, I may be dead, but Japan will be unified. And the Nippon culture is now Japan. We know it as Japan. Heck, they almost won a war. It's against the world. They wish they had Germany helping them and some other allies. But you look at like what started out as just an idea, as just someone saying, look, we need to be band together, because if we don't, we're all going to be picked off one by one, and the next big wave is going to just destroy us. We can't depend on a tsunami to save us every time. No, the divine winds are only there. I mean, you can't depend on that. The next time something happens, we're sitting ducks. I mean, we're open on all sides. This is an island, and he kept saying that. I mean, heck, the way that they ended up with guns in Japan was even like, it was just some Portuguese got lost and said, are we in India? And they're like, no, you're in another place, but we'll take those. I mean, it was just like anything could happen, and you're just out there in the open, and of course you got Godzilla who could show up. I'm joking, but but the point is,
G-Man's out there.
Yeah,
that's what they're really hiding. That's the real conspiracy. All of this is to hide Godzilla.
Gamera. But you look at this guy and what he did, and I'm not trying to say that that's me. I'm saying, what I'm saying though is the idea is that if and I'm sitting around for 20 years going like, somebody's got to do this. If somebody doesn't do it, then it's on you to do it. Okay. I never was like, I'm the leader, I'm the boss, I'm going to be the boss. I'm willing to follow a strong leader as long as they're, doing what's correct. But more times than not, a lot of times you end up having to just do it yourself, because if you sit around and wait for others to do it, it's never going to get done. And so just do it yourself. And so I started this journey doing what we're doing. And that's why I have you here, because I want the people from this field that I know will bring the truth and will bring us together, and we can talk about these subjects. And it's a vast subject. It's a lot to talk about. And once again, like Jason, like Chris, James, you guys know, we've all talked about this. Everybody said what with the conference. I did the conference, whatever. No way you can get all those people together under one conference. No way you can have a Saturday and a Sunday. Nobody believed, because not one of those guys had ever seen Sunday be successful. Not one of them. And when Sunday, we still had hundreds of people there. They were shocked. And I told them, I said, dude, things are the way they are until they're not.
Yep.
That's it. Period. People are always telling me in my whole life, well, this is just how it's done. This is just the way it is. You're just going to have to suffer through this because this is just how it is. But I'm telling you, and I'm telling the audience, I'm telling everybody here, it doesn't have to be that way. We outnumber them big time. And they put up an illusion of invincibility. Do you know how many times people have told me this person is invincible? They can't be beat. You can't do this. You can't do that. And then you just go over there and you do it. And then everybody's in shock, and it's like in some amazing thing. And I tell people, I'm nobody special. I'm just like everybody else. You know, I like sci-fi. Think of Flash Gordon, the song by Queen. He's like, he's just a man with a man's courage. You know, it's nothing but a man, but he could never fail. That song right there is so important because each and every one of us has the life and breath and spark of God in us. And that's what they want. That's what they want. They want that. They want to devour our not just our flesh, but our souls. What do you think they do with our souls when we die? People don't even talk about that. They don't even know what happens. You know, this is soul harvesting that's happening on a massive scale. And because it's so hard to fathom that it could be happening, that they can do it right in plain sight and nobody believes it's happening. And what you said, James, on Facebook one day, you were talking about Blue Beam. I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, these distractions, you know, and this disclosure, somebody said in the comments section, it's breadcrumbing, you know, oh, we got some, well, we'll admit that there's a little bit going on here that, yeah, because it's right in front of your damn face. How could you ignore it? I mean, like we just, you know, if you're standing there and somebody gets hit by a car, they'll be like, well, we'll admit that, well, something did happen. No shit. We just saw it, you know, that's what they're doing. They're breadcrumbing. And then the Blue Beam thing, like, give me a break, dude. Like, come on. You know, and that to me, they're just trying to like nickel and dime you to death, you know, and then maybe you'll shut up and stop talking. And then the aliens at the mall and whatever, dude. And everybody kept hitting me up about it. And I said, I don't give a crap about aliens at the mall. If the aliens were going to show up, they wouldn't go to a damn mall. Okay. Let's throw that out. Okay.
Well, but the sales were really good. That's what you're forgetting. Those were really good sales, man.
It was after Christmas. That's what all the best deals were, right?
Yeah. I mean, the sales, and plus the mall's got to bring people back. You gotta get the money where it is.
Yeah. And then you know what happens when they do stuff like that? And then everybody starts talking about how ridiculous it is. And then they think, I don't want to hear about the aliens because look how ridiculous they showed up at the Macy's. Okay. Nobody cares, you know, and then that all of that is just disinformation, and they dump it on you, and then they say, "Do you see how ridiculous that is?" And we're like, "Yeah, I see you making things look ridiculous. Yes, that's what I see."
Something you have to ask yourself, though. I heard this on Trailer Trash Terrors with Vic Hermanson. Why are there no videos from any cell phones of the teenagers fighting at the mall?
Yeah,
they kept saying it was a bunch of teenagers and they were shooting bottle rockets. Not a single video on YouTube of teenagers fighting each other at the mall
with fireworks. No World Star.
But how many people though can tell you that there were aliens that were there? I mean, you had like 2 or 3. You know, so what was really going on? I mean, it's anybody's guess.
It also happened out in California.
No, Florida.
Well, it also happened in California.
There was one in California
something similar. The trouble is, I was listening to the podcast while working, making pizza, and I was concentrating on what I was doing and listening and I got some of the show mixed up. But it was a very thought-provoking subject, simply because hundreds of people running around. Everyone was got a cell phone. Nobody took any videos of anything other than these Photoshop-looking aliens. And could this have been a test? Hey, let's just see what we can get away with. Could it have been a, oops, what do you mean you let those things escape in Florida? You know, something is going on. We just don't know what it is. And the big thing we have to put up with from those people all the time is this looks so stupid it can't possibly be real.
do you? And now let me ask you this. This question is aimed for you, James. Do you? Because we were talking about blue beam. Just so you can explain your position on that, and like what you were talking about.
Well, to me, the blue beam meme itself is the psyop, is the disinformation, because I'm satisfied. I'm sure all of the members of this panel are satisfied. This, lack of a better term, alien presence has been here all along. It's embedded in the ancient lore of all these different cultures all over the world. So to try to tackle this alien non-human issue without reference to what our predecessors have described, and you look at the modern day conceit of that, oh, these ancient peoples or these native peoples, that's just mystical mumbo jumbo. That's just misidentification of normal kind of phenomena, which is the same kind of BS we hear today. I mean, recently, just the other day, there was these triangular shaped craft, and there's this notion that any description of a triangular shaped craft is of necessity a man-made craft. That's nonsense. The triangular shaped craft is a normal aeroform which many civilizations in the cosmos and multiverse have utilized. The human aerospace corporations were the Johnny come latelys creating triangular shaped craft. So you very often hear this meme that, oh, if it's triangular, that's man-made. That's nonsense. Point being is that in Canada, a number of pilots saw a number of triangular shaped craft flying at 100,000 feet altitude thereabouts. Suddenly, all these experts start chiming in about how it's, and this is very common, that what they were witnessing was just the re-entry of space vehicles, et cetera, et cetera. James Oberg, who was a notorious NASA debunker, his stock and trade was every time there's an alien craft sighting, landing, whatever the case may be, from Oberg's perspective, it was always the reentry of some Soviet kind of satellite or rocket stage reentry across the board. Okay, so the same excuses they used back in Oberg's time, the late unlamented James Oberg, to this day, they're still using the same excuse. That, oh, that's just, in this instance, it's just you didn't see triangular shaped craft, so automatically, once again, this complete lack of faith in the humanity and the descriptions of veteran pilots. Okay, and on the other hand, this dismissal, this whitewash that it's all just this re-entry of these normal space vehicles. So if you're talking about blue beam and this notion that there are no aliens, it can all be explained away by holograms, advanced technology. For example, DARPA is frequently cited as, oh, they're the source of all this blue beam stuff. Well, if you track DARPA to its original predecessor, its ancestor, that would be the Joint Army Navy Research and Development Board, headed up by Dr. Carl Compton. Within the Joint Army Navy Research and Development Board, a number of scientists, including John von Neumann, Vannevar Bush, Oppenheimer, a number of others, were deeply involved in the analysis of recovered alien technology. So, and then they went through a number of name changes, eventually becoming DARPA. So to say that DARPA is responsible for all this blue beam fake alien stuff, that's like putting the cart before the horse, because the original ancestor of DARPA was the Joint Army Navy Research and Development Board, which was directly involved in the analysis and the back engineering of alien technology. But they don't know that, right? So everything is just a meme, everything is a soundbite. There's something intrinsically frightening and unsettling to people that this notion that non-human beings, call them aliens, call them what you will, in the language of the vernacular of the past, they would have been fairies. Nowadays, the term fairy has taken on this pejorative term. In the old days, the term fairy was infused with fear and trepidation. Oh, the fairies came by.
Oh yeah.
Right? Families used to leave bits of iron, real iron, horseshoes, whatever the case may be, in the cribs and the cots of children to keep them from being taken away. And what happens with a lot of these alien encounters, places in South America, Brazil, and other places where non-human craft let's say, are literally zapping people with light beams, rendering them very sick, what happens in many cases is they become extremely anemic. Their iron content almost drops to zero. So the iron is depleted in these people who've been zapped by light rays. Point being is that the the people in medieval times knew more about this than we did. They thought that if you can at least put iron in the cot of a child, it may help to protect them at some level. Okay. Nowadays, people put up crystals and they do saging and what have you. And it doesn't mean that they're wrong or that it's just some silly superstition, may or may not work. There is a basis for this understanding that these non human beings, call them fairies, fae, the wee folk, the gentry, whatever the case may be, and it's specific and unique to various cultures in the world. This is why one of my favorite TV characters, movie characters, is Dr. Daniel Jackson. He studied philology. He studied etymology. This is what Pierre Sabach does. He studies the etymological roots of words and languages. And so when you look at back in medieval ancient times, they were frequently talking about these non-human beings that would come and kidnap women and children in particular. And in those days, they didn't always bring people back. And this harkens to what David Politis talks about in Missing 411, the UFO connection. If you look at the Jicarilla Apache reservation, just to cite one example, which is a stone's throw from Dulce, Archuleta Mesa, all these places notorious for underground alien bases, some degree of human deep black military involvement. In their lore, they're saying centuries ago, these aliens, or we would call aliens, were coming out of the ground and taking women and children, and sometimes they wouldn't return them. Okay. So, point being is that everything is done nowadays without reference to the past. Modern ufology, UAPology, if that's a word, started with the Tic Tac videos. Forget about all the stuff that had happened before, all the numerous crash retrievals, Rendlesham Forest. I debriefed John Vasquez, a good friend of mine in San Diego, who since passed away. He was one of the U.S. Army infantrymen at Fort Benning, Georgia, September 1977, when his whole battalion on parade outdoors suffered a mass alien abduction, right? And then afterwards, all the psychologists come in, start drugging everybody, what have you. So what they've done neatly is just separate everything that's gone on in the past and just kind of reframe, move the goalposts and say, oh, they're just Tic Tacs. In the old days, they were cylindrical, barrel-shaped, cigar-shaped. Now they're Tic Tacs. You see, it's simply a matter for them to reframe, rebrand everything, make it seem like it's a new deal without reference to all the information and all the eyewitness testimony in the past. And I just one quick point, and then I'll just pass it on to the rest of our panel here, is that if only one alien abduction account was real, that presents a big problem because people are taken against their will by non-human beings and done, whatever's done to them. But when you have literally countless, underlined 3 times, countless people, and many of these people don't bother to report their experiences because of the fear of ridicule, harassment, et cetera, et cetera. If you look at the countless people who've been abducted by aliens, and like Candy Turner used to say, Dr. Carla Turner, if you could put like a sign over everyone who's had alien abduction experiences, and then you go to work, you go to school, you go out into society, and then you would see all these people with alien abductee on their heads, people would be shocked at how common this is actually. So, and then there's the whole hybridization issue, what have you. So what we're seeing is this deliberate attempt to once again detract from the very real non-human presence, which has imposed itself on the surface population. This is why all these things we normally take as regard as being abominable and like reprehensible, that's all the norm now. The gender bending, the weird kind of stuff, which is part and parcel of this Luciferian, and I would say, and I'll leave it at this, that black magic, ceremonial magic, Luciferianism, if you will, that didn't start on Earth. It came here. Okay, we're at the outer fringes of the galaxy. In Star Wars terms, we're in the outer rim. So a lot of this black magic stuff, what have you, and the two are intertwined. They're two sides of the same coin: black magic and advanced technology.
Yes.
Okay? So I just want to leave it at that. Black magic, as we understand it, it didn't start here. It was imported, I think.
Yeah,
Oh,
sorry.
so I wanted to lead this into you, Jason. You were about to speak. Hold that. This.
Yeah.
What James is saying, I was going to say, Jason, you and I were having this conversation, and we were talking about the Fae and the Seelie and the Unseelie court. And now the ancient people, they believed that these, and of course, if you're Arabic, they're jinn or whatever you want to call them, Christians, demons, whatever. But they believe that the Unseelie court, and there was a story I read, and once again, I think it was like Fate magazine or something, where there was this guy who was lifted up in the air and taken to the Unseelie court to stand before them because he had been so hard on them, and he was a minister. He was like an Anglican minister or whatever, and they were going to kill him. And so he began to evoke the name of Christ. And they basically got upset and told him that he wasn't playing fair, which is weird. I mean, it was a weird story. And I remember reading it, and I can't remember like the whole reference. I just remember the story. And so, yeah, that's very much what we're talking about here. Like now, these beings or whatever, they're thought of as like aliens, but that's what they were. And I think that's what they were all along. I think what these things are, whether they're bodied or disembodied, either way, they're all part of this. They're multiple races, but I don't know if you guys have ever played the game Halo. You guys, I've played Halo, and when I was younger, I don't really play games anymore. My nephews do, but if you look at the Halo game, I was playing it one day with my nephews, and I was looking at it, and I was like, these Covenant guys, they're like 3 or 4 different species, but they're all working toward the same objective.
Yeah, the Covenant.
The Covenant, to kill humans. And I thought about it, after the game. I was actually driving, and I was thinking, that literally is what is happening. Like, that is what this is. These aliens, these demons, whatever, they're all sort of different species, but they come together for one main purpose, and that's because they dislike the hell out of us. And I'm not kidding. They really do not like us. We are in the way, like I said. And what James said about us being, if you were looking at it in Star Wars terms, we would be in the Outer Rim. We are like a backwater swamp. And these demons, these aliens, they look at us as like talking monkeys. They don't think very highly of us. They just look at us as like slothful, whatever, and easily tricked and fooled, and just to be pushed out of the way. The only thing we have is God, and that's it. And because He's taken pity on us. So Jason, what you and I were talking about the other day, we kind of got into this a little bit about the tail end of what James was saying about what this is, like the magic and all that. We were speaking on that. You want to talk about that?
Yeah. So, I mean, this is actually something I did a couple episodes on. There is a deep connection between the occult and high technology. Always has.
Jack Parsons. Yeah.
Yep. It go back all the way, right? Metalsmithing, astrology, astronomy, it's the same thing back then. It was all supposedly given to us by the Watchers, right? And in exchange, I had a recent conversation, and as a result of it, I've been thinking about a couple of things. And I noticed that God never reveals information about the physical, natural world to us. He only reveals those things to us that we can't learn by actual observation and science and learning, right? Because He's the one who hid those mysteries. He's not going to allow us to cheat. However, evil does. It's always an exchange of knowledge about the physical world around us, and in return, we give them more of us. That's always the exchange, is giving them more of us. And so we are literally selling our souls for these stupid Black Mirror things that we keep in our pockets, and other kinds of worldly power that everyone seems to imagine to be so important. Real quick, there's so much going on. I'm in on the I'll end my comment on the optimistic one, but I do want to point one thing out. You mentioned your friend who saw the eyes shift, right, and change. I've got a lot of stories from a lot of missionaries. My wife's a missionary kid. Her family are all missionaries. There's always, you go out where the real magic is, right? Because the stuff around here is mostly hidden because they don't want. We're all materialists now, so they don't want to disrupt that. You go out where everyone still believes in the old magics. Stuff gets wild real fast. And I am not convinced that a lot of shape-shifting is necessarily physical, in so much as we always forget that we also are supernatural beings, right? We have souls. We are made in the image of God. We are not just, again, we're not just the crude matter, quoting Yoda again. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of these things, when people say, I saw they physically changed, I wouldn't be surprised if we're seeing the demons in them. If we're seeing, if our soul is like, you're not seeing, like, hey, you got to see something more going on here, because this is not just physical. It's the spiritual being and the demons within them. I think this is one of those things we have to remind ourselves of, is like, hey, not everything is flesh and blood, and not everything with those people is flesh and blood either. And there are people who are possessed by demons. There are people who are oppressed by demons, but there are people who possess demons. And those are the people you need to sort of really take a look at. And I think we see that manifest out of them far, far more often, which is why they do these horrible, horrible things because they are trying to rebel against God. And I think they are trying to cement that thing with this evil, with these evil beings that have been here forever. And all they want, to Josh's point, they want us out of the way. They want us gone. They can't get rid of us themselves, so they are pushing us to do it ourselves, which is why they push all of these ideas and concepts so that we can destroy ourselves faster. Because that's what they want. They want us gone. And I think it goes back to the idea of, and this is the more optimistic part to Josh's earlier comment about, with like Japan and the Greeks. We are taught we learn weakness. Our culture tells us that we're weak. It wants us to believe we don't have power. There's an actual word in psychology for it, and my mind's blanking right now. But it's essentially, you learn that you are powerless. And the reason they have to teach you that, the reason they keep reinforcing that, the reason so much of, you're like, why are people saying stupid things and they're pushing these stupid things? It's not because they want you to believe them. They just want you to say them. Mm-hmm. All of this, it's like, why are they pushing so many obscene ideas? And they want to make you say them because they want to make you say them so that you learn to give in. All of this is about learning to give in to them, because they don't have any real power. We do. Governments, the demonic, they don't have power. We have power. And they only have the power that we give them. Yeah. As soon as we learn that, hold on, no, that's not how this game is played. We can make the decisions. We don't have to bow to them. We don't have to give them what they want. Game's over that fast. So they have to force us into believing that we can't do anything. Look, don't get me wrong. I'm as cynical as they come. Like I said, I'm here for that good black pill, right? My outlook is as dark as my coffee, which is why I add salt to it. But that being said, the reality of the situation is we are far more powerful. We are made in the image of God. Jesus died for us because we are his children. We are powerful. Mm-hmm. We have authority on this planet. We were given authority. We are supposed to be his hands and feet in this world to make it a better place, to bring the justice of God and of heaven to the earth, to make it orderly, to help the oppressed, not to oppress other people. But they keep making us think that all we can do is hurt other people, and that we don't have the power to do something good, that we have to give all our power to them because they'll make it better. Not that they ever do. But they want us to believe that we can't do it ourselves. But that's the lie. That's the entire lie. You don't have to sacrifice your soul for power. Real power comes from creating life and being someone who gives life to other people, who supports, who unifies, who learns, who has humility. That's where life and power is. The ability to kill isn't powerful. Everyone's like, oh, I can kill, or I can. Fine, great. So can a cheeseburger and an 8-year-old with a handgun. I'm sorry. Death isn't power. Life is power. Creation is power. But as long as we're afraid of those who can just kill the body, you're never going to get anywhere.
That is the big fear right there.
Mm-hmm.
Like in Dune, he says fear is the mind killer. You know,
Yes.
you have to master your fear. I'm afraid of heights, but I was working in a 17-story building, and I went out to the edge of it, and of course I looked down over the side, and I walked around it. I mean, you know, it's something that I've actually picked up spiders and let them crawl on me because I'm afraid of them. But you have to master your fear. You can't be afraid. You know, this is not bragging. I hate when people jump on me when I say this, but there was a guy that was kind of like the big dog downtown when I started working downtown. He was a big, tough guy. He was bigger than me, stronger than me, but I did not fear him. Like I watched him punch a guy, and that dude's head hit a lamppost, and he busted the guy's head open, dude. And I'm not joking. And so when you see that those spectacles of the violent acts, as Bill the Butcher from Gangs of New York says, it installs that fear and everybody's afraid. And so when I started goading this guy to fight me, everybody was like, "Are you crazy? Are you out of your mind? This guy is a monster. He's done this, he's done this, done this." And I told everybody, I said, that those people are not me. It's not me. One time when we were in high school, we were at a place called Taco Cabana on Riverside. I'll never forget. It's not there anymore, that one. And me and him got into an argument because we had a similar group of friends, and he was a big bully. And he reached over and grabbed my shirt and put my face into some nachos or whatever it was. And everybody thought it was funny. And when we got outside, I turned around and I hit him with everything I had, because if you're fighting the big gorilla, the big bully, you don't ever hit lightly. You hit him with everything you got. And I gave him the hardest right hook I could. And I didn't knock him out, but I staggered him, and everybody got in between us. And I am confident that I would have gotten him. And from that punch, after I said the things I said to him, I was out in front of his club like daily talking trash. Like, "Come on, dude. You know, what's up?" And his guys were like looking at him like, "Are you going to do something? Are you going to shut this guy up?" And I was like, "You're not making me afraid, dude. I don't give a damn." I was like, "I got your number, bro." And when we fought, it was basically just me hitting him going on the ground, and then people pulling me off of him. He didn't get one lick on me. Now, history could have been different if he would have maybe got a couple good. He probably would have, you know. But I was quick, I was fast, and I'm a big dude, but I'm really agile, and so I was able to take him down. But you can't be afraid. You can't be afraid. And the biggest fear is that people like, no one's going to listen to me. I don't have a voice, or they think that the fear of failure. You know, when I started this show, we were bullied big time by these other podcasters, YouTubers. They were ugly, mean. They said all these mean, nasty things, do all this stuff, whatever. And they're doing it now, and I'm laughing. I'm like, I don't care. What does it matter? I'm on this travel. I'm on this journey. And what you say doesn't matter to me. It doesn't matter. And who cares what people say about you or what they think about you? The truth is the truth. You can't suppress it. You can't hide it. And we are very powerful. And when we work together, we're very, very powerful. I would say some of the smartest guys in this field right here in this conversation. I mean, you guys are very, very intelligent. And that's why I'm very proud to bring you on and talk with you guys. And I appreciate your time. And the thing, everybody has said this in this panel tonight, is, you know, we are stronger than they are. We're stronger than they are, but they're creating an illusion that they're this big bad, you know, and you can't stop them. What can one person do? You know, what can one person do? Well, one person can't do everything, but one person can start it, and then other people join, and then it's a snowball. And next thing you know, they're the ones that are in retreat. You know, revolutions are won with 15% of the population. Doesn't matter. I mean, people are like, you know, oh, well, how can this be? You know, most of the people during the Revolutionary War sat on the fence and they watched the people, and they were like, look at these idiots at Bunker Hill. Oh, they're freezing to death out there. Oh, glad it's not me. You know, and then the war, the British are like, well, we're pulling out. And the Tories were like, oh, no. What do we do? You know, maybe we should have been on your side. Hey, let's be friends. No, it's a little late for that, you know. But that is what is happening right now. Revolution is taking place, and it's of the mind. It's for your mind and your soul. And that is exactly what is happening. And these people, they are so evil. I want to bring up something and see what you guys think of this. Have you guys heard of the phenomenon known as the black goo?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So the black goo is something that I've wondered about many times, and I've often thought that the black goo could be something, a way for like demonic possession, to like a link to alien contact. Now, I've talked about this before, And it seems like to me, like you'll hear stories, you know, and it seems like to me that there could be something to this. Like that is ultimately what it is. Like not just these aliens. They're just races of beings that have been overcome by this. But the black goo, you know, could be the connection, could be what gets inside of people. There are people who are talking to me or have talked to me. The Brazilian Exorcist episode, folks, go back and check that one out. The lady was coughing up this stuff, you know, and they said it looked like blood, but it was actually black goo. And then, you know, there have been stories we've gotten. There was one in Flagstaff, Arizona, where somebody saw this demonic looking cat-like thing, and it was fighting with this wolf looking, and there was this black goo enveloping them. You know, you get these weird stories, these weird encounters that people have that like people's eyes will go completely black. You know, the black-eyed kids. I mean, that's, you know, right there. What are your thoughts on that, gentlemen? And then after that, we'll close it up. But I just want to know what you guys think, if that connection to that, if I'm on the right track, or maybe I'm off base. I don't know. We'll start with you, Chris.
Way
Let
back.
me interject real quick. I have to leave. My regards to everyone on this panel, and my regards to everyone watching. My love and well wishes to all of you. Thank you, Josh, for having me on here. But I got a boogie. I got to take care of some stuff. So
Yeah, man, it was
so
good having you,
to
James.
be
I
on
know
this
you're
panel.
like
Thank you all.
16 hours ahead of us or something like that, right?
Yeah,
It's like Sunday
it's
over there.
3:11 p.m. on Sunday afternoon. Anyhow,
That's crazy.
have a good one, everybody. Bye for
Good
now.
having you, James. We'll talk. So, Chris, go ahead and give me your idea on the black goo. What you think?
Way back when you did a show where you're talking about a Bigfoot that was seen standing next to a tree, and it was suddenly being enveloped by a black goo.
Mhm.
And when I was listening to your podcast while putting together a cat tree, several cat trees for my gang in here, and it got me to thinking, what is this black goo stuff going on? So I had to go and do a podcast of my own about it. And there are a lot of different theories as to what it is. Some people say, oh, this is heaven sent and it will make us all better people. Very small minority that think that. A lot of people believe that it is some kind of an alien being. Perhaps this is what the aliens actually look like, and that they are trying to take over people by getting into their bodies. And I know that sounds like an episode of the X-Files, because a lot of times true information will be masked by Hollywood putting out a TV, a movie, some kind of a show that shows this particular substance, the black goo taking over the people. And when you mention it to those people out there that don't know any better, oh, that was just something on TV. That's all that was. But there is a lot of folks out there that do believe that this black goo is something from outer space. And for some odd reason, there is a whole lot of it in Venezuela. Venezuela and the Falkland Islands are two major sources of black goo. And a theory going around in England is that that was the actual reason for the Falkland War. It had nothing to do, it had nothing to do with Argentina. It had to do with hanging on to that black goo. Another theory going around was that it is a man-made substance that is called, and I can't think of it. It's good how your brain will shut down at 10 o'clock at night. Graphene. Graphene was hailed as the plastic of the new world. It was going to take the place of all plastics. Our cell phones were going to be better because they were going to have graphene in them. It was going to be used to make car parts. It was going to make the world a better place. And then all of a sudden, it went away. Short shelf life, never mind. They spent millions of dollars looking into it, and then a couple of days just saying, graphene, no, that was nothing. There is a theory going around that it has been put into I don't know if I can say this without.
Yeah, let's not say it, but we know.
Yeah.
We know.
It's
into
being
something that's supposed to make
Right.
you
it's
well.
being distributed to people.
Surreptitiously, yes.
It could be in our food. It could be in our drinks. Vaping.
That right there.
It
Yeah.
could have been the folks with these fake cigarettes may have been ingesting it.
Mhm.
And it's supposed to go directly into the brain and start taking over the important part of our body, which I don't know if it's up here in the chest, but that's another theory going around. And I put this out on a particular platform, and I was immediately ejected from that platform. So,
So what do you think then, Jason?
This is one of those times where I like to be able. I know this is a hard thing to do, and everyone sort of expects like you gotta have. I would like to wait for more information, right? Like it is weird. It does show up a lot, and the question just becomes, okay, but do we have enough evidence to really even start leaning one way or the other into it, right? One of the issues I have with the entirety of the entirety of Fortiana, right? How much can we trust what we're actually observing?
Yeah.
How much of it is illusion? How much is it how much of it is us perceiving the supernatural, but we're having to try and translate it in our brains are trying to translate in a way we can understand. I'm happy to say something's a mystery. I know I'm not convinced it's good. I don't know. Maybe it's the symbiotes that made Venom and Carnage. I don't know. But it could. But the thing is, I don't know that I'm willing to have an opinion beyond I don't want to touch it. I don't want to get anywhere near it. What it is, where it came from, I'm happy to say it's a mystery for the time being. And here's the problem. What if the black goo isn't all the same black goo? See that, and that goes back to what can we objectively observe and what can we objectively measure, and then base it off of that criteria. What I can say is it certainly doesn't look good. There's enough. It pops up often enough. I'm not happy. I don't think it's a good thing. But what is it? I'm happy to say it's a mystery to me. And at some point, maybe we will have more information where we can say, oh, here's what it is, right? But until then, I'm happy to say I don't know. I just don't want to be I don't want to be around it, and I certainly don't want it surreptitiously given to me.
Mm-hmm. Somebody said that it's found in pencils. No, that's graphite.
Yeah, it's graphite.
It's not graphene. I wish it was that simple. It was just it's in pencils and that's it. That's not. No, that's not the case. I think it's a lot more sinister. I think it's something that's really, really bad. I had my own experience with it. I've talked about it on the show. What I experienced was more of a spiritual nature, and I was under the influence of something. I'll just say that. And it was, over 20 something years ago, but I was a young man and I was like, it was very real what happened to me. And I would say that it is something that is evil. That what I experienced, especially, was something evil. I don't know what it is, and I'm not going to pretend like I have all the answers, but I know that there's a lot of people who reported this, seeing something that kind of drops from the ceiling like a teardrop and then kind of moves around, and you're like, what is that? I do believe that it could be, like you guys were saying, it could be what the source of all this is, I don't believe that the devil, Satan, whatever you want to call him, Mephistopheles, whatever name you want to give it, it's just different titles for different beings, Lucifer, whatever. That is not the opposite of God. The opposite of God, that could not be the opposite of God, because those are beings that are just like, whatever, that's one being. They're not omnipotent. They don't have the Holy Spirit. This is not what we're dealing with. God is the source. He is the light, the creation, everything that all comes from him, right? So the antithesis would be something akin to dark matter. And if you look at that in the cosmos, there's a lot of it, and it is the absence of light. But wherever there's light, it doesn't exist, right? So when you look at it like that, that could be what this is, and it is something that's taken on the physical form of the absence of light. I know these shadow beings, you know, it's like some people have reported seeing shadow beings, and when they shine a light on it, they can't even penetrate it. It's like it just absorbs it, and that's it.
Yeah.
So it's a very powerful substance. It's a very powerful thing, and it could be pure evil. That could be truly what evil is, you know. And so, anyways, guys, I'm going to let you run, and I'm going to close up shop here, man. I have really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you for coming on. I want to tell you guys, you got an open invitation the next several Saturdays, and I'm going to be here. Chris, jump on, whatever. I'll send you a link if you want it. Just request it if you want to be on. If you got things to do, no, I won't take offense. We got plenty of people who want to do it, whatever, and it's up to you guys. And Jason, I'm definitely looking forward to talking to Dr. Bertram. I want to get him on.
Yeah, I'll get him on.
I don't know if you've ever talked to, and now I'm drawing a blank again, the UFO, I mean the alien hunter, Daryl Sims out of Houston.
Oh, okay.
No.
I don't know. Oh, you know what? I may have corresponded with a million people. I may have.
Well, he's an interesting guy to talk to if you want to see if he would like to be on the show.
Well, Chris, if you want to, have you talked to him before?
Oh yeah, I've I sold a bunch of his DVDs and books while we were in Edinburgh because he got called up onto the stage, and my table was right next to his. I just selling his books to people, and he gets back. It's like, here, you made you some money. So I guess I'm kind of on his good side.
Yeah. Well, get in touch with him maybe
Alrighty.
And tell him, hey, I would love to have him come on. This next weekend, I'm going to have Truth and Bass on. They're alien abductees, and we're gonna do this again. We're gonna do this every Saturday for 2 months. I made my commitment to everybody. I'm trying to push, as hard as I can because you never know. We only given so many breaths, and I want to do what I got to do before it's all over.
Yeah.
So. All right, gentlemen, I'm going to let you guys run, and I'm going to close up here. Thank you for being on, Jason. I appreciate it. Chris,
appreciate y'all.
Y'all have a good night.
Appreciate you having us.
All right.
Thank you,
Good
sir.
night.
Good night.
So, folks, this is the first of many weekends where we're going to do this on Saturday. So there are people who are excited. They're happy that we're going to be doing this every Saturday. And then there's some people that are like, why you got to hog up the airwaves? Because I think it's important. I think it's very important. I appreciate everybody coming out tonight. We got up to about 420 something people or whatever it was, 430 maybe, which isn't bad. This isn't our normal night. Saturday's not our normal night. It's Friday. It's typically our normal. We had Bart Nunley on last night because my guest backed out at the 11th hour, which I thought was a total jack move, but that's fine. I don't care. People are going to be people, right? They're going to do what they're going to do. And we're going to be doing this, like I said, every weekend. Tuesday, we're going to have really we're only going to be off one day. Tuesday, we have the podcast episodes an hour long. That's actually the original show. Wednesday, we're going to have our guests that we record. Their pre-records are hour-long episodes, so you got that. And then after that, you got Bart Nunley. You can listen to Bart Nunley for an hour and a half, 2 hours, however long he goes for. And then Thursday, you'll have me on with Blondes and Booze. Do me a favor, if you're a friend of mine, go and subscribe to Blondes and Booze. Help them out. They got a couple thousand subs on there, but they should have a lot more. They've done a lot of good work, and I really believe in what they're doing, and I like them a lot. And so go to Bart Nunley and go to Blondes and Booze. Show them some love. I'm also good friends with Matt Imsh. He does a really good job. Planet 412, he's knocking it out right now. Go and check him out. And of course, BMR and Texas Front Porch, and those guys, Bigfoot Michigan Rob, Tex, they're really good friends of mine. Go check them out and give them some love and give them a like and a subscribe. There's a lot of people doing a lot of good work. Lyle with Monstro Bizarro, he's got his YouTube channel up now. Christopher Garitano, a very good friend of mine, Off to the Witch. He's doing really good work. These guys are really, really doing a lot of stuff. You already have all this content to listen to. You don't even need to watch TV. Okay. You don't need to watch the Black Mirror. You got us, and you got tons and tons of information. Barton had an investigation he did today. I believe it was like, and he was in the woods and he was reading somebody's story. And you know, these guys are doing a lot of good work. You know, James Bartley, good friend of mine, very intelligent guy from Australia. It's crazy because it's like Sunday over there. It's 3 p.m. And so, you know, he's over there in land down under. He used to live here in the United States, and there I'm going to be recording with him. He has a ton of information. Barely scratched the surface with any of these guys. Chris James, he lives down the border, down here, former Border Patrol. Jason McLean, great guy, smart, biblical theology, just smart guy. And so I'm going to be doing this every Saturday. So you got the Friday show, which is going to be a guest. Every Friday we do that, you know. Saturday, we're going to have these panels every Saturday, and we're going to talk, and we're going to get all these different men on here. They're going to have their opinions, the men and women that are going to be a part of this. And Sunday is going to be strictly just me retelling people's encounters. We're going to do it tomorrow. We're going to talk some Dogman, ghosts, aliens, Bigfoot, whatever happens. We're going to talk about it, and we're going to retell some stories. And don't forget, I have a third book that I'm in the process of writing. I started kind of switching it up because I didn't like it. I mean, it was really done, but I didn't like it, you know. So I'm, you know, it's my book. I got to make it correct, you know. And then the fourth book has already been started. So my goal is to produce at least 3 to 4 books a year. And I know that sounds crazy, but everything I've said, because there are people who literally say that I'm a lunatic and that I'm insane, right? But those people are talking from their padded cell at Arkham Asylum. Yeah, everything they said, you can't do this, you can't do a show with all this. You got to pick a lane and stick in it, stay in it, right? Stay in it. You can't do this. And we did it. We're doing it, right? We're doing it. They're like, there's one show that does that, and that's a big show that comes on late at night, and I'm not competing with them. You know, I said, I'm just not even. I couldn't even if I wanted to. All I'm doing is trying to bring you the truth, the information, right? It's all connected. It's all connected, folks. Don't let them lie to you. Don't let them fool you. It's all connected. These fields need to be unified, right? They need to be unified. People need to work together. They need to come together, or you will never get answers. I think right now, where we're at, as a civilization, as a society, we're right on the cusp of either finding the answers or falling off into the abyss. But it's funny because we've never been closer to both of them at the same time. We've never been closer to slipping off the edge, and we've never been closer to finding all the answers. I mean, it is a weird thing. Like right now where we're at, it's very pivotal. And if we all come together, we can do this. We can do this. Believe me, we can do this. And we here at PRT, we want to be at the forefront for as long as we're allowed. And it's up to you guys to support the show, to come out and watch and help out and do what you got to do. Donate your time. Your time is the most valuable thing you have. And if you can donate your time to helping out, listening to the show, that's the important thing. Just showing up, being here, absorbing the information, taking it out to your family and friends and say, look, there's something going on here. You need to check it out. Because I want us to move forward into a brave new world that's not full of psychotic entities that are in control. And yeah, I want us all to be there together. People said we couldn't do it with the conference. They made fun of me, you know, that when I said we were going to do the conference, they made fun of me. They were all these funny comments on there. You think people are going to do this and do that? You ain't going to do that, stupid blah blah blah. Ain't nobody going to. And then we did it. And we did it the second time, and I said, you know what? I'm going to do it on Labor Day weekend. Oh man, the trash talk was deep. It was deep, boy. Let me tell you. Nobody's going to go there on a holiday. Labor Day is for families and children. I never heard of that. I was like, families and children or Labor Day? Whatever. If that's what you say, if that's what you believe, that's fine. If you want to believe that, that's fine. Hundreds of people showed up. And it was an amazing event, and we did it again. And then it was again on a Sunday. Like everybody said nobody could do that. You can't do it on a Sunday. Everybody leaves and they travel back on Sunday. It's only Saturday, and you won't be able to get people to be there. And we did it. We did it 2 days in a row. We did it 3: Friday night, Saturday, all day and night, and then Sunday. We didn't end Sunday until dark. I mean, it was 8 o'clock. We were just finishing up, and it was I was dog tired, but you know what? We did it. The books. You can't write 2 books at one time. Man, but who the heck does that? Blah, 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 blah. Well, we did it. Then I told everybody, did I not tell you we were going to do a UAP panel? Did I not say this was an ambitious project? We're going to do this. We're going to do it every Saturday. We're going to do it. And we're doing it. We made a board game. My wife created this, it was her idea. All we did was play it and tweak it and whatever. And it's going to be released, and it's going to be, and now coming out with an album. And I'm letting you hear the songs piece by piece. Tomorrow, I'll let you hear the 3rd one. There's actually 2 more that are going to be coming out, but we're, they'll be out. Don't worry. And all these things that people said couldn't be done. These are things on a smaller scale, but I'm thinking bigger. I want to create a movement of people who are sick and tired of the bull crap, who are seekers of truth and knowledge and true enlightenment. And you want to know, and you're sick of the frauds and the AI generated stories and the fake numbers, all that crap. That's all bull crap. Go to where the truth is. Go to where the reality is. All right, folks, thank you for tuning in. I'll see you tomorrow night, right? I'll see you tomorrow night. And then if you want something to do on Monday, I'm not on the air on Monday. So check out Hellbent Holler. I'm good friends with Jesse and Joe Doyle. Go check them out. They do real boots on the ground work, and they're really good at what they do. Go check them out. You won't be disappointed. And then, of course, like I said, Tuesday and Wednesday, we're on with our podcast. Thursday, I'm on with Blondes and Booze. Go to Blondes and Booze. I'll be there every Thursday at 8 o'clock for the rest of this month. And then on Friday, I have a guest, do a live stream, and then we're going to do this every Saturday for 2 months. And then Sunday, I'm retelling encounters, which I'll be doing tomorrow. And I'll take my rest on Monday. All right, folks, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for everybody. We love you all. Everybody that showed up here. You got Shade Viking, Daniel Evans, Ania. Oh, look, Behar County Bigfoot. What's up, man? What's going on, Rod? Good guy. We just interviewed him on Thursday. Go check that show out on Blondes and Booze. I had a great time with that one. Gwen Hunt. I see a lot of people here. Bernard Fox. Everybody. Philip Barnes, Sugi, Brianna. Thank you to everybody who showed up and supported us tonight. I got laughed at by a couple of people in the UFO community. They're like, one guy who kind of was my friend. I thought he was. I mean, he's like, oh, now you're going to do UFOs. I said, I've been doing it. You watch the show. Well, you talk about ghosts and, werewolves, right? And I said, very condescendingly, I was like, well, if you don't want to be on the show, don't be on the show. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep spinning your tires. In fact, why don't you just pander to, the networks, and maybe they'll put you on TV and you can run around and find nothing too. Or maybe you can take your shirt off and wave it at some aliens. Right? Do what you got to do. Right? Don't condescend me, okay? Because these people are more interested in self-aggrandizement, and they're just doing what everybody else says. You can't do this, you can't do that. Says who? We outnumber them, don't we? We outnumber them, right? All right, guys. I'll see you. Y'all have a good night.